Hi everyone, okay, this is Bobby Fischer against Reuben Fine, which was a casual game played between them in New York in 1963. Despite being a casual game, it's also very instructive, as you'll see. Bobby forces Reuben Fine to resign after only 17 moves. Bobby had the white pieces and he opened as usual with e4, and after e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, and b4. The game is going into the Evans Gambit, which is a great gambit to play and one that I always use when given the possibility. It's named after the Welsh sea captain William Davies Evans, who is the first player known to have used it, which he first did in 1827, and in nearly 200 years it's never been fully refuted. It's rarely seen at top level because playing bishop c4 at the opening here instead of bishop b5 is not considered as strong. However, it does sometimes crop up, and Kasparov used it to beat Anand in 25 moves in 1995, and Bobby often played it at simul's or in casual games, but preferred going into the Rue Lopez in tournament games. There are several videos about the Evans Gambit on YouTube if you want to learn more. The main thing to recognize is that white is aiming for, and often achieves, a strong pawn center and quick development for his pieces. It's best to accept the gambit, and that's what Reuben Fine played with bishop takes b4. So then comes c3, bishop a5, d4, and white has achieved a very strong pawn center. E takes d4 is what Reuben Fine played here, which is not an especially good choice. The best way to meet the gambit is with d6, and after white castles, bishop b6. And this is what Emanuel Lasker, the second world champion, recommended as the play to meet the gambit, and this line put the gambit out of use in tournament play for a long time. It often leads to a lot of simplification, as well as the queens coming off the board, which, playing as white and having played a gambit, is undesirable as you're looking for a quick attack. But anyway, back to the game. E takes d4 is played, and then Bobby castled, which is all still mainline. And here d takes c3, which is materialistic and unwise really. It's much better to continue development instead and allow white the strong pawn center. For example, d6, c takes d4, and knight f6 is better, all things considered. So anyway, d takes c3, and queen b3 is the next move for white, which is again the mainline move if black allows the game to go into it, with dangerous pressure now building on f7 here. And Reuben Fine played queen e7, which is one of various ways to defend f7. Another possibility is queen f6, but after e5 and queen g6, and not knight takes e5, because then rook e1 favors white strongly. If d6, then queen a4 check picks up the bishop. So e5 and queen g6. White's space advantage, his control of f6 here, which is stopping the knight coming out. It'll have to come to e7, which isn't as a good square, and white's superior development in general give black a very difficult game to play, despite being 2 pawns up. Play might continue knight takes c3, knight g7, and bishop a3, which is a great square for the bishop in the Evans Gambit if black has played his own bishop to a5 after the opening moves. And it's nearly impossible for black not to go wrong now, as there are just too many threats. If black castles now, then knight d5 is very strong. So, back to the game. Queen e7 is what Reuben Fine played. And then came knight takes c3 and knight f6, which was a mistake really. Like, Fine wanted to get castled and thus get his king safer, but now white gets an even more crushing attack. Better here is bishop takes c3, and after queen takes c3, knight f6. Despite losing the bishop pair, black should be able to consolidate and, as long as he's careful, withstand the pressure from white, but still it wouldn't be a pleasant game to have to play. So knight f6 and now knight d5, and now white's initiative makes it impossible for black to castle without being down in material. Fine played knight takes d5. If instead queen takes c4, then bishop g5. b5, knight takes f6 check, g takes f6, bishop takes f7 check, king f8, bishop to h6 check, king e7, and bishop g7 gives white an absolutely winning positional advantage. So knight takes d5, e takes d5, knight e5, knight takes e5, queen takes e5, and bishop b2. And now black has no decent defense. Reuben Fine tried queen g5 in order to protect the pawn here on g7 from the bishop at b2, but then came a great move from Bobby, which is h4, which is one of many roads to victory. And interestingly, Fritz doesn't like this move and prefers instead queen a3, which forces d6, and then of course queen takes a5 with a big advantage for white. If instead of d6 bishop b6, then rook a1 check, and white has an absolutely crushing attack. The only move to avoid being mated is king d8, but then comes bishop takes g7, rook g8, and h4, which is similar to the game continuation and gives a winning advantage to white. So h4 is what happened in the actual game anyway, and queen takes h4, which was a game losing blunder from Reuben Fine. Better here was queen e7 instead, after which either queen f3 and king f8, or bishop takes g7, rook g8, and queen b2. They both give white very good compensation for the pawns in terms of pressure, but no directly mating attack. So queen takes h4 anyway, and then comes bishop takes g7, which black has allowed by removing his queen from the protection of g7, and now it's completely lost for black. And this was the point of Bobby's move with h4 before, to move the queen away from the protection there, so white can open more lines into the black king. So rook g8 and rook fe1 check, which is another great move and seals the win. If bishop takes e1, then rook takes e1 check, king d8, queen b2, d6, bishop f6 check, king d7, queen b5 check, c6, and it's mate in 4 at this stage. D takes c6 check, king c7, rook e7 check, bishop d7, rook takes d7 check, king b8, and queen takes b7 is mate. So rook fe1, and king d8 is the only reasonable move, but now came the finishing touch from Bobby with queen g3, and now black has to give up the queen in order to stop himself being mated, because he cannot defend f6 with his queen, and bishop f6 now will be mate. If queen f6, then simply bishop takes f6 is mate. If queen e7, then rook takes e7 of course, and say d6, bishop b5, this is all best play, bishop d7, bishop f6, c6, queen takes d6, rook takes g2 check, king takes g2, king c8, queen takes d7 check, king b8, and queen takes b7 is mate. If another possibility is queen h6, I mean, it's crazy enough, but it's mate in 2 anyway, with bishop f6 check, queen takes f6, and queen takes g8 is mate. So Reuben Fine resigned, and it was just a brilliant game from Bobby and a great example of the attacking potential of the Evans Gambit. I'll replay it quickly with the threatened squares highlighted just so you can see it from start to finish. It's only 17 moves, but it's interesting to see it all the way through. And yeah, like I was saying, the Evans Gambit has never been refuted in over 200 years, so chances are it's never going to be refuted. And I mean, look at white's development there, it's just far better, and the attacking initiative that it generates is probably worth 3 pawns in this game anyway, but in every game it's well worth gambiting the pawn. Okay, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments or thoughts. Thanks very much.